Everyone, and welcome back. What we're going to be looking at now is the idea of direct and indirect taxes and kind of see where that goes. And so, HST and sometimes called GST are examples of what we call direct taxes. These taxes are always evident when you conduct a transaction. So, for example, when you go to buy some groceries at the store, or perhaps you're buying a car, there are taxes that are directly on that car. Okay. Another common direct tax we call is property tax. So if you own a house or are renting a house, you might have to, in the case of owning a house, you have to pay, and if you're renting, it's usually built in, property tax. This is a tax paid to the municipal government. It's a percentage value of the property. The percentage paid is also dependent on the type of property. So, for example, the 2014 property tax rates for a few areas are listed. So, for Bradford, Barrie, and Newmarket, here are the corresponding percents. And if you notice, I gave 3 cities, but we are going to talk about 2 cities in a bit. Here's their percents. Now, when you see the word residential, this means like regular houses. Okay, so where people live. So it might be the neighborhood that you are in right now and so forth. If something is commercial, these are things like Walmart, Canadian Tire, Circle K if you have that there, like a convenience store, things like Tim Hortons, anything like this. And the last kind of area that could be zoned is something called industrial. So in Thunder Bay, we have something called the mill, but anything like, say, like a lumber yard or things like that, these all tend to be industrial, and they have a different tax rate. Now, I left off the 2 cities in here, and these are actually the cheapest and the most expensive. As it turns out, Thunder Bay is actually is one of the most expensive for property taxes. And I know that for some of us that we're not necessarily in Thunder Bay, but it is the town that most of us tend to be familiar with. And the cheapest town is actually Toronto. Cheapest for property taxes. You might be thinking, that doesn't make sense. Does that really make sense? Well, keep in mind though that Toronto may have one of the cheapest cheapest property tax, but the price of a house is incredibly expensive. And the reason in Thunder Bay, it's going to be quite expensive here, but it's actually going to be houses cost significantly less as compared to other cities. And so part of the reason why Thunder Bay has to pay more is that it's the only large city in the area. Sure, places like Dryden, Kenora, and Sioux Lookout exist, but those areas have even higher tax rates for the houses that they have. Whereas Toronto is like everyone's kind of put together like in a small area, so you can maintain roughly the same amount of roads, and it's easier to do when you have 40 times the population. And so Uh, those are the different kinds of rates that exist. So property taxes are paid directly to the city, often on a bi-monthly, and bi-monthly means every 2 months, or quarterly, which is much more common, which we would say is 4 times per year. And so my question to you then is, what do you think property taxes in a city, or in the case of where you are, like what do you think your property taxes pay for? And so we did discuss this. So things property tax pays for are things like garbage, recycling, like ice rinks. Recycling is not spelled correctly. Recycling. 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 There it is. Sorry about that. Recycling, ice rinks, roads, um, things like this. Basically, any kind of thing that where the city can run as intended. Now, some people might have to pay for garbage tags, but the price of a garbage tag is still would be significantly less. In Thunder Bay, it also pays for things like, say, the bus system. So if I were to take a taxi from where I am home, it would cost me about $60. If I were to take an Uber, meaning somebody just comes by and picks me up from me back to my house, it would cost about $30. If I take the bus, it's $3. So the bus helps subsidize that, meaning makes it cheaper for like people to get around. So anything like this is kind of what the city pays for. Okay, so that's a direct tax. That's what these property taxes pay for. And it's every 2 months or every 6 months. You can pay like all at once if you so choose, but these are the typical ones. Indirect taxes are taxes that are included in the selling price of an item. Often you might not even realize that they are there. An example of indirect tax is the tax charge on cigarettes. In Ontario, the tax added is approximately 13.97 cents per cigarette or about 2.80 per pack of 20. In addition to this, cigarettes are also subject to uh, HST. Now, it's worth noting that, again, when you go to, that's why, for example, in Thunder Bay here, if you buy your cigarettes from the corner store, they are a much different price than if you make your way over to, say, the local reserve, because on the reserve, you don't pay these taxes on there. Okay, that's part of the treaty that was signed. Now, additionally, there is also gasoline also has a hidden tax in its price. So GST is included at the price at the pump, as well as gasoline taxes collected by the federal government. So throughout Canada, and this is still true in 2024, the federal government collects 10 cents a liter in taxes on gas. In Ontario, an additional 14.7 cents or 0.147 cents a liter is collected. Now you might be wondering, and now it's probably worth mentioning, if you go to the corner store, so at the corner store, a chocolate bar does not have HST included in the price. But when you buy gas, it is included in the price. And my question is, why does it do that? Why is it the case when you go to the counter at a store, you have to pay when you buy a chocolate bar, the tax is added afterwards. So if it says $1.99, it's going to cost $2.25. Why is it when you buy gas, you put in $20 worth of gas, you get $20 worth of gas? So why? Well, the thing is that when you try to buy a chocolate bar and you don't have enough money, the chocolate bar can go back on its shelf. When you buy gas and you don't have enough money, it's really hard to take the gas out of your car and then to take the right amount of gas out of your car. And so that's the reason why that the gas is the exact price, because they don't want to deal with the business of trying to siphon gas out of your car. It's pretty messy. I also wanted to add here that in terms of property tax, there was a couple more suggestions. They mentioned road maintenance as well as snow removal, and that is indeed the case. Keep in mind the highways around where you live; those are maintained by the government, but the roads inside of where you live, those are maintained by the town. Okay. And so I have left for you some questions to try out. So Chris owns a house that is assessed by the city to be worth this. He currently lives in Bradford. What will his yearly property tax be? And so I want you to go ahead and figure out these questions. I'm not going to do any examples of this just because, if you can figure out how to do commission, you can do these questions. So take some time to figure this out, and then we will take this up. Okay, so let's see how we did this. So again, these questions weren't meant to be too confusing, but they could still be a little bit tricky. So Chris owns a house that is assessed by the city to be worth 325,000. Okay, fair enough. Currently lives in Bradford. What is his yearly property tax? Well, he owns a house in Bradford, so that means his rate, since the houses are residential, it's going to be 1.14%. And so his yearly property tax is going to be 325,000 multiplied by 0.114, because I believe it was 1.14%. Yes, it was. So we take our 1.14% and we can divide it by 100 to give us that 0.0114. And so on your calculator, let's perhaps work in red. We type this in, 325,000 multiplied by 0.0114. That's going to give us this 37 number. So that means that this person, Chris, would owe $3,705 per year in property tax. Now, if the city expects payment 4 times a year, how much will each payment be? Well, we can take our 3,705 and divide it by 4, and that'll tell us the size of each payment. So we'll divide this by 4, and we find out that on each payment he'll owe $926.25. And so he does. Okay. Question 2. The current price of gasoline is 1.612 per liter. How much of this is federal and provincial tax? Well, we said from up here that we collect 10 cents and 14.7 cents from the federal government and Ontario. So the province, or I should say the feds, want $0.1 a liter, and the province wants 0.147 a liter. So in total, what they would like is 0.1 plus side 0.147. And if you add this on your calculator, you're going to get 0.247 a liter. So what is the price per liter is tax. So this is also how you determine like what your grade was, right? And so what we want to do is to take the desired number divided by the total number. And then afterwards, what we will do is multiply by 100. Okay, that's what we're going to do for this. And so consequently, this is going to be this 0.247 divided by the total number, which is going to be this 1.612. And then we're going to times this by 100 afterwards and see what we get. Okay, so we're going to take our 0.247 divided by 1.612, and then we're going to multiply it by 100, and we can see it's about 15.3%. And we'll take 1 decimal point here. So that's going to be 15.3%. Okay. Question 3. We have Mel moving to Barrie. Her new house has an assessed value of $349,950. Calculate her bi-monthly property tax payments. Okay, so we said bi-monthly was is going to be 6 because it's every 2 months. And so since she's living in Barrie, we have a look up here. Barrie has an interest rate of 1.31%. So that's going to be equal to 0.131. And so we're going to take this number and multiply it by 0.0131. And so when we do this, 349,950 times 0.0131 That's going to give us 4,584.34 with a 5 at the end. So since there's a 5 at the end, it means it's going to be 5 or greater, so we will round up. So we'll make this a 5. Now, this is how much they owe for the whole year. So this would be the annual. And so we want to take this number and we're going to divide it by 6 to get our answer here. So if we take 4,584.35 and divide it by 6, 4,584.35 divided by 6, and that's going to give us 764 point, and it's going to round up to 06. And so it is. Okay. Last question. Lou bought a carton of cigarettes containing 200 cigarettes. How much indirect tax did he pay? Well, up here, we said we paid 13.975 cents per cigarette. And so if you were to take this, and we're going to convert this, remember, this was in cents. So in dollars, this is going to be 0.13975. And so if we take this number and multiply it by 200, that's going to tell us how much she paid in taxes. So 0.13975 multiplied by 200. And so that's going to give us this 27.95 number. And that's how much he's going to pay in tax. Okay? And so that's how direct and indirect tax works.